I didn't know about the Michael Jordan. But everyone here has talked about Sonia, which is kind of like Beyonce or Cher or Madonna. You know, she just needs Sonia. And we know who we're talking about. And when Sonia, I first met Sonia through one of the programs. I was a nonprofit leader, and she just somehow touched me in a way that, with her hand, and that I kind of felt like this electrical shock went through me. And I know some of you have experienced that too. I live on Cape Cod, and I had the opportunities of driving Sonia from Brookline to the Cape to Wellfleet, and she would tell me all sorts of stories. And from that point on, then we developed a personal relationship. I'm on a cane because I had broken some bones, and when Sonia was still driving, she would call me up and she'd say, "Let's have lunch, I'll pick you up." And we would go someplace locally. I would do most of the listening. She would do most of the speaking. And then I moved into a new house, and she said, "Well, let me help you decorate it." And she had a great flair for moving furniture and great taste in art. This goes over here a little bit more, or move that over there. I also learned through many of our trips to the Cape that she liked moving, right? So she would occasionally say, "You know, the house in Brookline, I'm thinking about moving," or the place in Brookline. And I'd be like, "It's lovely." And she would say, "No, it's time. I need to move again." She called me, and I felt really honored. She called me the night that Edwin had passed, and she said to me, "I'm really going to need another friend on the Cape. Please, can I please call you?" And I said yes, and I'll do whatever I can. In between those conversations, I'm also a member of the board, so I got to see things and help through that end. But my greatest memory for our one name, Sonia, is the simple things like coming over my house for lunch, moving a chair, bringing a little piece of something and say, "I think that belongs there." And the other thing I wanted to say is that I was traveling this week to a part of Upper New York State that I hadn't been to before, Ithaca, and met some new friends of mine who somehow knew Sonia. And it was like everywhere I go, down in Delaware, and then somebody introduces me to somebody who knew Sonia, or or the person who knew Sonia. She was a great connector. She was a great friend. Of course, she was almost like this spiritual leader to many of us. But I was really pleased that she chose me to speak to at times, and I have lots of secrets where she would say something to me and she'd go, "Don't tell anybody." So thank you for letting me share.
I'm a fellow Cape Codder, so I use that to jump on following Donna. But I have wanted to say, since Celia spoke, that the Stay Human band of Stephen Colbert's program reminds me of the training to be good human beings, and that was so much a part of my history with Sonia. I think I'm going to try to be brief. That's the thing I've had the hardest time learning from her. But I have long followed Carolyn Lukensmeyer, and therefore when she started speaking, I jumped up. I felt I absolutely have to speak after Carolyn. I have been so inspired by the urgency and the civility and the ways you have prioritized, recognizing that our political body is not other from us, is part of who we are. And the urgency of paying attention to that and taking responsibility for that. So I'm so grateful, Carolyn. briefly, I first met her either at supervision for Gestalt Press or when I was invited to the Eaters and Writers group. Can't quite, they were both in that penthouse apartment in Brookline. And what I remember was the second time I went to the Eaters and Writers group, I had just figured out on the drive from Cape Cod to Brookline that I was supposed to bring some food. Everyone brought great food. And I had a bag of potato chips in the car. And I was really hungry. So I broke into the potato chip bag and I thought, there's going to be so much food there, she won't notice. And I came in with a half-full bag of potato chips and remarked on it later, and she had noticed. So after that, I baked something, brought something intentional. I suppose the main thing that I learned from her as my therapist at times and as my friend was when she made that connection that to be a good therapist is to learn how to be a good friend. And once I heard that, I started trying to get better at cultivating friends in my life, and that became absolutely key, and I hear Sonia's voice in that whenever I reflect on it.
And I came with something this morning. And when I think about the gathering or whatever happened right after Edwin's memorial, one of the memories that came to me and has been with me for a while was Sonia talking to us about the invitation to show up and actually showing up. And so it's with that in mind and a reference to an Indian poet, Kabir, that I have this poem. Sonia's Call. Kabir says, if you don't break your ropes while you're alive, do you think ghosts will do it after? I read it in a book about poems. Now, in Autumn's Morning Light, I wonder, what if all of life is an invitation to this moment, to this day of the goldening green marsh and the call of falling leaves? What if letting go is all we really need to learn? Would we pay to practice? Perhaps that's what we've done here with Sonia when trying something new. It seems to me the space between the letting go and moving forward is eternal. And that's where you'll find Sonia now. Her steady gaze, solid ground for bigger lives, if we dare. What if there is nothing new to try? Only now, this moment, full of freedom and despair. How do we live more boldly now in the afternoon light of Wellfleet Woods? And now, and now, and now.
I'm Marianne Walk, and Sonia would be so happy to see all of you here today. Actually, she is seeing you here today. And I had the great privilege of being a friend for years and years, and the privilege of living with her for a couple of years up here while I was working. And she is a very complex individual. You all know how relationships are so important to her, but she was also quite a private person. And I looked at these wonderful pictures here, and I don't know if you've seen them all, but she looks like a pinup model. Doesn't she look beautiful in this picture? She looks like a pinup model. And she was an amazing person. But while I was here, I said to her, I said, you know, you've done lots of things, and you've been lots of places, and you know lots of people. Is there anything in the world that you really want to do that you haven't done? Because I think we can build a list, and while I'm here, maybe we can do some of those things. She said, I always wanted to drive around the circle in Hyannis. And I said, well, what's the big deal about that? And she said, Ed would never let me do it. I thought, oh, Lord, okay. I said, is it really something you really want to do? I have always wanted to do it, and he would never. I said, all right, you want to do it today? Do you think we can? I said, Sonia, I'm going to take a page out of your book. Do you think you can? And she said, yes. I said, get your coat on. We're going to Hyannis. Now, I have to admit I was a little nervous, but I am not risk averse. So I actually drove to Hyannis, and we parked at the edge of the circle, and we had a conversation about what she needed to do to be able to do this. And I said, do you think you're ready? I think so. I said, now, you have to remember that you need to listen and do what I tell you to do. That's the most important thing, that you pay attention to what you're doing, but you listen to me speaking in your ear, okay? Okay, she says. So she sculls around the car and gets behind the wheel. And I tell her now, and it was a light traffic day, thank God. And so I said, now we're going to go to the inside of the circle, and you're going to stay at the inside of the circle. And you're just going to go around and around and around until I tell you to put on your blinker to the right, and then we're going to shoot out of the circle. She said, this is so exciting. And you know, she did it. We got into the circle, and she drove around and around and around. And till I was almost dizzy, actually. I said, okay, put on the blinker and let's get out of the circle. Do it now! And she did it. And she actually drove all the way back home and then went to bed and took a nap. But it was always an interesting time being with Sonia, and I was thankful that of all the things she gave to me, that I was at least able to give her the ride around the Hyannis Circle. Now, one other thing I just want to say, because I do believe that we should be brief. I didn't know this. I didn't know about this. This is an award that Sonia won in 2014. That's just 3 years ago. And I thought I knew everything about Sonia. But I saw this, and it's a Lifetime Achievement Award for the Gestalt OSD 2014, Sonia Nevis. Did you guys know this? All right. I just wanted to be sure everybody knew this, because I didn't know it, and I think that's a great accomplishment. And it's sitting right here by Edwin's. And I don't know, it might have been Carolyn Sluckensmeyer who said that today is about Sonia, but it's hard to think about Sonia without thinking about Edwin, because they were partners for so many decades. But truly, what was said about them being an extraordinary couple, but being extraordinary in their own rights, was dead on. And so different, but both so good. So different, but both so good. So my sympathy doesn't only go out to the family, but to all of us who've lost a dear friend. Thank you.